Chapter 14. Plum. The night I left, Ba was finishing his hospital rounds. He wouldn't be home for hours. I left a note pinned to his pillowcase, vague enough he wouldn't be completely caught off guard, but not clear enough for him to know the real reason I left. I packed a small duffel with what I couldn't bear to live without, and then I called a car to take me to meet Ko at our spot. To tell you the truth, I didn't fully expect her to be there when the car dropped me off. Why would she? No one in my life up until then had proved to me anything otherwise. But I still hoped she would be the one to stay. But she was. She was there. I couldn't help it. At first, I let myself believe in some kind of permanence. When we first left home, we had the hardest time finding somewhere to rest our heads, and so we started to become like the ones we used to forage for. Transient, woodland creatures subsisting on berries hanging from trees and food left in garbage cans or by kind strangers, like the ones we used to be. We were cut off from the world, Ko and I, but on that account we became very attached to one another. I hoped with everything in me that we would always be together. But with her, Ko held on to a different hope, that her parents could change, that they would accept her as she was. She didn't look like me, so I imagine it was different for her. Her beautifully milky skin, her long hair, her feminine way of navigating the world. She could hide the secret more easily. I wasn't so lucky. I couldn't hide what I was or who I loved from anyone outside of Ba. I had no desire to. Although we occasionally found warm rooms with beds at the local shelter, Ko found it more difficult to equate herself with the other queer runaways, the transient souls who couldn't make their way through the dependence on MDMA or alcohol. I didn't mind it so much. I felt less alone knowing there were others in the world like me who didn't feel rooted anywhere. I had never felt a pull towards anything that would alter my perception of the world. That felt too scary. But Ko's story wasn't like mine. She had parents who couldn't understand her, but they didn't have a fierce hand like Ba, or an inability to stay like Ma. I know now she never wanted to be like the woodland creatures, generous enough to share their tiny blanket with us, or stretch their small findings of food to accommodate three instead of one. I'll always remember that she tried just because she loved me. It was a cold night when Ko told me she was going back. We were lying under a worn blanket someone had abandoned in a dumpster, trying to keep each other warm with it and our body heat. We could have built a fire, but a fire would have made us more visible, perhaps risking our arrest. Then we would have been back to square one. Plum, her two soft feet sandwiched mine from where she held me from behind, a move she would instantly make when we slept. It's the reason I called her Koala, aka Ko. Ko's cheek rested against the dip between my shoulder blades. She took back her arm that was holding my belly to tug on my earlobe with her hand. Coco, what is it? She pushed my shoulder down so that I would turn my body around to face her. I'm going back, Plum. I'm sorry, I can't do it. I wish I could, but I'm not like you. I'm not strong. Her words dissolved into tears. I held her like she had held me so many times before. Shh. It's not about strength. It's just the only way I can survive. But I understand. I whispered in her ear, not wanting anyone around us to hear. Hey, look at me, I said, softly raising her face to meet mine. Her face was beautiful and held such depth, even in the dark, even at this moment when I knew I would soon never see her again. It will always mean so much to me that you tried, more than I can ever tell you, I said to her, tears filling my eyes. We spent the rest of the night holding each other, our tears wetting the backs of each other's shirts. By noon the following day, Ko was gone. When Ko said she was going back, we knew what it meant, that I couldn't. But I suppose, if I'm being honest with myself, I always knew that she would never be able to sustain a life of transience. If she hadn't left, maybe I never would have found my way to Dr. Frank's lab. A social worker named Marjorie helped me get my GED, which gradually led me to college on a full scholarship and then to a graduate school, and finally, to trying to help others build their families. I wanted to give others what I always craved for myself. If I couldn't have a family, at least I could help others manifest it for themselves with fortunate access to new technologies, if they could afford it. After life on the streets and losing my heart, sculpture seemed the most trivial pursuit in the world. I couldn't imagine a time that life would be that simple ever again. Besides, sculpture reminded me too much of Ko now. It was too painful to go back to that life. Ko became another tender bird in my hand like Ma. Due to how overwhelming I was, she got away from me. It hurt too much to make things, to remember Ko's hands behind me, helping me hold the plaster or clay into something better than I could envision. Her hair falling over my shoulder. The only way forward was through, and the only way through was to envision a rebirth, shedding the life I once had and starting anew. It was better to move on and hope I could, in some way, help others find their Kos, their Mas, their little creatures of joy.